Do you want to know what it is?
Conspiracy theories have been around for thousands of years. Some of them have even had a huge impact on history. Take Nazism. We normally don't think about Nazism as a conspiracy theory, but, at its heart, it was a global cabal theory based on the idea that Jewish financiers secretly dominates the world and are plotting to destroy the Aryan race. Even current politicians can be conspiracy theorists. Trump's main election theme is also a conspiracy theory. Thanks to the internet, this is the golden age of conspiracy theories. Each mysterious event is subject to infinite theories. Nowadays there are so many conspiracies and a lot of people find the ones that best suit to them. There are rather innocent conspiracies like those who believe that we are an experiment of aliens, that they observe or even protect us. There are less innocent ones like those who accuse the government to make false flags, plot fake pandemics, hide revolutionary technologies. Those who believe in sinister plans from the global financial elite, Freemasons and Jewish. And also those who believe in unbelievable theories like flat earth theorists. The statistics are intriguing. In US 41% believe that UFOs are aliens, 37% believe there is a single group of people who secretly control events and rule the world together, 23% strongly or somewhat believe that 9/11 was an inside job, 19% strongly or somewhat believe in chemtrails, no vax range from 5 to 15%, and even 4% of US population believe powerful people are reptilians. Why your smart friend get into conspiracy theories? Obviously, it's not a matter of ignorance or stupidity. Even though people with low levels of education are more likely than more educated people to believe in conspiracy theories, they are also common among the well-educated. Experts argue that it comes to be a mixture of lack of critical thinking, lack of self-awareness, lack of self-criticism and, importantly, a lack of social stability. But this clearly is not an exhaustive and accurate picture of reality. Many different people engage with conspiracy theories in so many different ways and for so many different reasons. The psychology of conspiratorial thinking is indeed very complex. There are several factors involved. There is no specific recipe for a conspiracy theorist. With this premise, now we can generalize the main causes, traits and consequences of conspiratorial thinking. Let's start with the main traits of conspiratorial thinking. Distrust. Distrust in the institutions, politics, media and science, but also interpersonal distrust. This can lead to think that reality is different from what it appears and that hidden plots of meaning connect what in the eyes of most may seem the result of chance. Call it also paranoia. Relatedly, intentionalism. The tendency to believe that everything that happens is the deliberate action of malevolent, intentional agents. Then, simplification. The tendency to drastically simplify complex issues by seeking linear and intuitive explanations. And certainly pride. They tend to feel superior. They are the ones who are informed. They are not manipulable while the majority is made up of uncritical sheep. There are many causes of conspiratorial thinking. First of all, there is a sort of evolutionary explanation. We as human beings are born to believe, to find a reason, to give a sense. Conspiracies are narratives that satisfy this fundamental need. They are indeed everywhere. Think of movies. Matrix, The Truman Show, The Paper House, Squid Game, Lost and so many others. We love conspiracy theories and their mystery. We humans need narratives to process what happens around us or in the world at large. As the popular historian Yuval Noah Harari has said, the truly unique trait of sapiens is our ability to create and believe fiction. All other animals use their communication system to describe reality. We use our communication system to create new realities. Environmental. We live in an increasingly complex, uncertain, and mostly unjust world. So if we go deeper, we also observe that fear and its little sister, anxiety, have a prominent role. More generally, the cause is the primary epistemic need to understand an increasingly complex, uncertain and often frightening world. Conspiracy theories are indeed somehow empowering. But there is actually a paradox. On the one hand, most of the events are controlled, and you can do very little, while, on the other hand, since you know the real truth you can fight back and denounce. But this is not the only paradox at play. Believing in conspiracy theories can relieve the feeling of powerlessness and uncertainty, but at the same time it makes you believe that most people are totally alienated and manipulated by evil people. Not very relieving. People can turn to conspiracy theories for comfort, but conspiracy belief can also increase anxiety. Social. The need for identity and even group identity. We may indeed have a strong desire to feel unique and special and an exaggerated need to be in an exclusive group. The Netflix documentary, Behind the Curve, on flat earth theorists explain this dynamic very well. So when people get lonely and confused, they need to associate with people who think alike. Usually, narratives that explain our feelings and enclose them within a safe community of believers are a relief. This may be even more true for economically disadvantaged individuals. The findings suggested that conspiracy theories can relieve the self or group of a sense of guilt for their disadvantaged position. Individual. There are of course also individual causes. Conspiracy theorists are often unable to suspend their judgment and could really enjoy blaming. In particular, the lack of humility and the excess of pride and arrogance can be common traits. And a little bit of narcissism too. But how people get into conspiracy theories in the first place? To begin, conspiracy theorists usually have high level of internet usage. So they will inevitably stumble upon some theory that might appeal them. Here it enters the game the primacy effect. This leads people to give more weight to the things heard or read first. Those who received news while they were restless, angry, or afraid tend to remember it more easily. This would have influenced the subsequent elaborations and decisions, and the mind tends to hold more valid what it could recall with little effort, at the expense of what it could know with greater effort. Then, the anchor prejudice ensues. By thinking, one does not depart from the point on which the mind had fixed itself from the beginning, mistaken for the point of the question, when in reality it had been chosen arbitrarily. And if the information received at the beginning was in the name of nothing is as it seems, if the frame is that of a truth hidden by occult plots, it is easier to stay in that frame, lining up other biases and cognitive distortions. Here it comes the prejudice of intentionality, which suggests that if something had happened, an accident, a flood, an epidemic, someone must have wanted and planned it. The mantra of a conspiracist is, there is no such thing as coincidence. Similarly, the proportionality bias convinces them that a large-scale event with many consequences could not have a small cause, but it must necessarily have a large one, which in turn, based on the prejudice of intentionality, has to depend on the will of someone. At this point, the confirmation bias is triggered. Without even thinking about it, the information that reinforces the conviction is chosen, discarding those that would have put it in crisis. Each piece seems to fall into place, which gives satisfaction, makes you feel strong and able to dominate every theme and subject. The exaltation reinforces the Dunning-Kruger effect, the tendency to overestimate one's knowledge, to take it for granted. And this leads people to discuss of virology, engineering, ballistics, astronautics, history of religions like if they were experts or the disciplines simple. So, if I believe some kind of global cabal theory, a theory that can explain several conspiracy theories, I enjoy the comforting feeling that I do understand everything. As Harari again argues, the skeleton key of global cabal theory unlocks all the world's mysteries and offers me entree into an exclusive circle, the group of people who understand. It makes me smarter and wiser than the average person and even elevates me above the intellectual elite in the ruling class, professors, journalists, politicians. I see what they overlook, or what they try to conceal. And the more one overestimated one's ability to read the world, the more the apophenia made one perceive connections and patterns where there were none. This is called illusory pattern recognition. The believer is now in the grip of the bias from intensification of commitment. The time and energy invested do not allow him to stop, let alone reverse course without consequences on his ego, on his self-esteem, on his credibility in the eyes of others. With each passing day, changing your mind would require more mental fatigue. But why change my mind if I was right? The post-purchase rationalization had started. If I invested a lot in it, it means that the deal was good. If the believer felt a cognitive dissonance, for example between his self-esteem and the fact that his conduct had alienated loved ones, he resolved it in the least tiring way, saving self-esteem and blaming others. Do I lose friends? Isolate myself from family and relatives? It's their fault, they don't want to wake up. Do they prefer to remain in ignorance? Let them stay there. I have a new community anyway. And more people share our ideas. And if more and more people share them, it means we're right. And so, happy with his argumentum ad populum, the conspiracy theorist goes on. The paradox is that many disinformation consumers claim to be critical thinkers. This can effectively reduce the effectiveness of thought-based solutions to disinformation in disclosed information environments. Some of the most well-known proponents of the flat earth theory indeed claim that they look at things objectively with a critical eye. They may say, I did my own research, while they more likely mean is, I watched a shitty video on YouTube made by someone else. Moreover, they often get news from platforms such as YouTube and Facebook that can actually conspire against them in some way. The personalization algorithms these platforms employ, in fact, are able to find which topics, issues and groups interest them the most in the end, they are able to feed us to enter the rabbit hole of increasingly incredible conspiracy theories. This is the most famous radicalizing online dynamic. This occurs when you start watching one video, you get nudged with recommendations in the right bar towards slightly more extreme videos. Over time you may find yourself watching something really extreme. This is not a conspiracy theory. In a recent systematic literature review, out of 23 studies on the rabbit hole effect, 14 find evidence of this effect, 7 produced mixed results, and only 2 found no evidence. Conspiracy theorists are therefore both manipulated and misled by themselves. They tend to maintain an overconfidence in rationality, and a strong subjective certainty, which describes the highest degree to which a person can be convinced that something is true. Are there antidotes to conspiratorial thinking? Not really. There is a paradox of conspiratorial thinking. If things do not go as expected, other ad hoc hypotheses are created, or rather post hoc hypotheses, after any event that puts their framework in crisis. This process can go on indefinitely, while falsifying these new hypotheses every time becomes a very difficult task, if not impossible many times. Fundamentally, there is a threat to their identity and reputation. It is so hard to admit that one was a bit of an asshole and wasted hours believing something that came out to be false. These people feel the profound need to be consistent. So, there are no antidotes, but in general you could make them reason on complexity. Accepting that reality is far more complex than previously thought. This means to embrace humility. Understand that it is incredibly difficult to predict and control human affairs. How many people are needed for a COVID global conspiracy? Thousands? Millions? Secrets cannot be easily kept.
To imply that the Earth is flat, you aren't just saying that NASA is lying. You aren't just saying there's a conspiracy within a single company. You're implying there's a conspiracy involving the world's 71 space agencies, 13 of which have launching capabilities. Not only are you saying all 71 of those agencies are lying about the shape of the Earth, but every single person within them is lying or being fooled by their respective companies. Furthermore, every single astrophysicist in the world is, by your implication, a scam artist getting paid to do research through telescopes and instruments that would be useless if the world were flat. So roughly 75,000 people are lying about what they do for a living. Not only is it absurd to even imply that NASA program under the United States government could possibly pull off this sort of conspiracy, but the fact that all 71 space agencies around the world are also taking part in some conspiracy, and every astronomer and astrophysicist and astronaut is also part of the same. It just seems that so many different people are involved in this major conspiracy.
Yeah, all the
So I guess
Even a Nobel Prize can say bullshits. Even nice people make a business out of beliefs they may disregard. As a matter of fact, there is a whole economy of conspiracy theories, books, courses, gadgets, subscriptions and so on and so forth. Trusting the anti-conformists by default is a form of conformism. Also, they should acknowledge how competitive is power. There are always conflicting interests ready to reveal others' plots. Realizing that no single cabal can secretly control the entire world is not just accurate, it is also empowering. It means that you can identify the competing factions in our world, and ally yourself with some groups against others. That's what real politics is all about. But let's be realistic. More often facts and data don't work. They need to trust you. They need not to feel judged. They need not to look stupid or, at least, totally wrong. So there is a fundamental need to rebuild trust. They should accept that we need experts to rely on, and these experts cannot be all complicit or idiots, but also that they need others to reason. Their family and friends are not inferior or naive. They need to be listened as much as they need to confront with others with a principle of humanity. When interpreting the other, we must assume that his or her beliefs and desires are connected to each other and to reality in some way, and empathize to gain trust. Most conspiracy theorists seem to expect institutions to be perfect, so they easily get disappointed. This might lead to a radical disillusionment. To believe that any event has one only cause, that men are ultimately evil. The temptation is too strong. Feeling right, feeling superior to most of the people. We can all show conspiratorial traits. It's natural, but we should recognize them, understand these thoughts as hypotheses. The uncertainty must be tolerated. There is a truth that conspiracy theorists may dismiss, and it is that conspiracy theories are beneficial to the status quo. Most of these theories often divert attention to more pressing social problems. It's a form of mass distraction and propaganda. This could be intended as a meta-conspiracy, a conspiracy to confuse the masses with fake conspiracy theories. Cultivating conspiracy thinking is indeed a useful strategy for the neoliberal system to maintain the status quo. As always, the ancestral divide et impera, divide and rule. This conspiracy is, after all, more credible than most conspiracy theories. Sure, the term of conspiracy is instrumentalized and often used to attack people who actually present facts and hypotheses that are difficult to prove. Conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists are not all the same. To be clear, conspiracy won't disappear. Quite the contrary, they could even evolve. Some scholars have indeed identified a potential new phenomenon, conspirituality, when conspiracies meet spirituality. It is defined as a rapidly growing web movement expressing an ideology fueled by political disillusionment and the popularity of alternative worldviews, like New Age thinking. The main risk is that genuinely spiritual people will embrace misinformation, find comfort in conspiracy narratives, and even find allies in far-right conspiracists. Eventually, this may lead to bigger, more influencing and dangerous movements. But today more than ever we need to make choices based on science, not pseudoscience, and we need politics based on facts, not fantasies. So why you're the friend you thought was smart is Novax. To put as simple as possible, because they are fucking afraid of what's happening, of how complex the world is, how institutions have, as a matter of fact, undermined their authority and, most importantly, also because they trust the wrong people. To truly understand conspiracy theorists, we need to understand that there are always kernels of truth on the theory they support. Contrary to what conspiracy theorists often do, we should be able to find common ground with them and everyone else. To be inclusive, not exclusive. Not to mock them and consider them poor crazy idiots. Instead, as confused, scary, lonely, and manipulated. It's their fears that we should take seriously as a society. Ultimately, the most effective way to counter conspiratorial thinking is to reduce the unhappiness, frustrations, injustices that push humans to console themselves with conspiracies. And in the end, it will always be inevitable that there are conspiracy theorists. Because conspiracies actually do exist. But we will likely find them out after a long, long time, if ever.